Welcome, I'm Jackson Bell.
And I'm Tamara Bell.
And you're listening to our podcast, Talking Movies with My Mom, where I, talk about movies with my mom. And just so you know, there will be spoilers. Alrighty then, let's just jump into it. Now, summer's over, and according to a Deadline article, this summer's box office intake hit around $4 billion, which is up 16% from last summer. Now, last year, summer of 2022, everybody saw Top Gun Maverick. That was like the big movie last summer. Nobody would stop talking about it, but there was a reason for it. It was just so good, you had to see it. Now, this summer, of course, was led by Barbenheimer. Now, before we dive into the movies we saw this summer, we want to acknowledge the ones we did not get a chance to see, like Little Mermaid, Indiana Jones 5, Transformers Rise of the Beast, Elemental, and The Sound of Freedom. So let's start with one of the movies that we actually saw this summer. Let's start with the best movie of the summer. Let's out of the gate, greatest film of the summer. Everyone's probably going to know I'm going to say Spider-Verse 2.
Yes, absolutely. I loved Spider-Verse. Well, first off, I have to say my love for Spider-Verse, I guess now it's one, is, oh my God, second to none. I love that movie. I can think about some of the scenes from the first Spider-Verse where I start laughing. I mean, I'll just be like thinking about it and I just break out laughing. And thankfully, I'm not usually with people who are looking at me going, why is she laughing? But there's just certain scenes in that first one, and you know what I'm going to say, the one where Miles is at the computer trying to hack Octavia, trying to hack her computer, and he goes in and it shows up on her screen and it's got all of these files on it. And he's like, clean up your desktop, lady. And I just laugh at that every time I open up my computer because my computer was exactly like her. And I just think that that's hilarious. But there's so many other great scenes in that. And so Spider-Verse 2 was something that we were really looking forward to seeing, and it totally did not disappoint.
Oh, totally. In fact, it was probably the fastest 2.5 hours of my life.
Exactly. Oh my God. I think we looked at each other afterward and we're like, what, is it over already? I mean, because we could have gone on. They absolutely could have kept going and like just made it a 4-hour movie and we would have been like there for it.
And again, the movie looked great, sounded great. One thing I love about these Spider-Verse movies is that they feel very experimental. They're very much tributes to not only just Spider-Man as a whole, like the franchise at large, and many, many incarnations, but it's also homage and tribute to just animation as a whole. We have so many different styles clashing with each other, and they all look really cool. It's so fun seeing Miles along with like Obed Brown, who is like Spider Punk, who looks like a zine from like the 70s. And apparently
Right.
he took like 5 years to animate because he was so different from everybody else.
And didn't I
And
read
all,
somewhere where they were actually thinking of not having him in it?
which would have been a big mistake. So another interesting thing about the movie was that, I was following the movie's development for a while, and definitely remember seeing titles like Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, Across the Spider-Verse Part 2. So I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a two-parter. That's very interesting. And then when it came out, they got rid of the Part 1 and the name. So I'm like, okay, it's still going to be a two-parter, right? Because there's a third one coming out. There's going to be something at the end that's going to let us know this will be continued in the next movie. And sure enough, it ends on a very big cliffhanger. And apparently people were surprised. They were like, what? It's over? And it's like, yeah, this is part 1. But because part 1 wasn't in the title, you wouldn't expect that. You probably would have thought it was a more complete story that kind of led off into another movie.
Well, I mean, there was just so much jam-packed that when it
Oh,
got
yeah.
to the end, I mean, and just so many different themes explored and so much happening. Just not, I mean, story wise, but like visually. I mean, it just, that's why I love these movies, is that they almost just like are smacking you in the face with all its beautiful glory, that it seemed like, how was it going to wrap up as it was coming toward the end, right? I mean, the only way that it could have wrapped up is if Miles had actually gone back into his universe.
Right.
And everybody's like, oh, good, you're home. Everything is great, blah, blah, blah. Didn't even know that you were gone. You know, the parents are like, oh, we didn't even know you weren't here. And all of a sudden, that's not what happened.
Travesty.
I think when we were watching it too, it was at the end. Because didn't I lean into you and say something like, oh my God, he's not in his universe?
I think so. And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, wait a minute. Huh. Because you're right. It would have been easy if it was like, oh, he's back in his home world.
Because he's not Spider-Man in that universe.
Right. There is no Spider-Man in that universe.
Right. What is he in that universe?
He's like Prowler Jr.,
Right.
which apparently, according to a friend of mine, that was foreshadowed all the way back in the first movie.
Really?
Because, oh yeah, apparently when Miles had his little spider senses before the spider bit him, they were green, like purple green, which for the Prowler's colors. So in that universe, Miles would have been the Prowler, like Prowler Jr., but then that spider came and bit him, and so his fate just changed completely. So I feel like it's almost like he's fighting against like fate. He was always meant to be a Prowler Jr. I noticed another name for his character, but I'm just gonna call him Prowler Jr. because it's funnier. But I feel it was like he was always fated to be Prowler Jr., but his life just changed and just everything went out of whack.
Well, that's interesting because obviously earlier in the movie, when Miguel has like that big reveal that you were an anomaly, you're an anomaly in every verse, you were not supposed to be Spider-Man, and that the Peter Parker in your timeline, in your universe, would have lived if he wasn't trying to save you. And you were bit by a spider that should never have been in your time. And therefore, you're not really Spider Man. You're not supposed to really be Spider Man. And he's like, well, screw that. I mean, you know, I mean, in a nice way, he didn't really say that to him, but he was basically saying that. I mean, he kind of was like, got upset, as he should, and said, why is everybody always telling me what my story is? I'm going to say what my story is. Well, then who was he supposed to be?
Exactly. And again, it's such
Prowler
a minor
Jr.
yeah, it's such a minor detail that it's cool that now we're like picking up on that. And it goes to show how much have they planned since like their pre-production of the first movie. How much has changed? How much have they kept in? How much have they been like, we're gonna save this for the last movie, which we hope we're gonna get.
Sooner rather than later. I want to know what's going on, and even a year is too long.
Right. Now, originally it was supposed to have been released in March of next year. They changed due to, well, a variety of factors. The biggest one being the strikes, the actor and writer strikes. And I think another is that it wasn't fully finished by that point. They also wanted like more time for the animators to get working on it, which, you know, if that is true, I definitely approve because animation is a very time consuming thing.
Right.
Yeah, lot of people, a lot of hands. Animation takes a long time just to get done. It takes like a week just to get like a simple walk cycle because there's so
Right.
many like drawings and with CG and all these different art styles clashing together, how to make them look really good all in one place is a challenge. I can see these movies being like massive undertakings for everybody involved. And the fact that they do look as good as they do is just really awesome.
Absolutely. I think that while I want it as fast as can be, take your time with the animation, please.
Oh yeah, and speaking of cliffhanger endings,
Another movie that ends on a cliffhanger is Mission Impossible 7, Dead Reckoning. And they do put part one in this one, as opposed to Spider-Verse that took part one out.
so people don't freak out over like, what? It's over?
Right. So it was like, okay, no, it's part one. Here we go. Just hold your horses. Obviously, it's a good movie that didn't quite perform as well as it might have, according to box office receipts, because it had the misfortune of premiering the week before Barbenheimer.
Yeah, not exactly a bright move. the studio's part, which I don't know if they could have moved it. Where would you move a movie like Mission Impossible? Because it's a summer franchise.
How could you even know? Because these things aren't just decided at the last minute. These are studio decisions that are made like a year in advance of when the movie is going to actually, show. And how would they know that Barbenheimer, that Barbie and Oppenheimer would become this massive, just, kind of thing? There's no way that they could have figured that out and been able to have actually done anything. So, yeah, I thought that was just unfortunate for it. But obviously, if you have the chance to watch it, I think it's going to be on like Paramount streaming at least. Who knows? It's going to be on a lot of streaming services. Definitely watch it because
Oh
it
yeah.
it was great. One of the things that I thought was interesting because in the movie there's a death in it, like a death that you really weren't expecting because it's of a major character, and it's Ilsa's death. And according to the director, who's the director again?
Is it Christopher McQuarrie
Yes. Okay, that's his name. Thank you.
who directed the previous movies?
He said that her death was because the stakes have to be real, not just implied, and that she was never meant to be defined by her love story with Ethan Hunt, which I can appreciate that. I mean, it's nice to actually have, unfortunately, she had to die, but it's nice to actually have a female character who isn't supposed to be the love interest. AI was basically the weapon of choice in this movie, which is interesting, I think, given the time that we live in. This all conquering AI tool named the Entity basically goes rogue. It amplifies our worries about technology, when AI can just become like the sentient being, which kind of seems a little Skynet to me, which obviously we already talked about my love for the Terminator, but it definitely had that Skynet kind of feel to it where I was like, I'm not really sure. How do we get out of this? Right?
Right. And the problem is the entity, not only is he just a bad guy, he's also an asshole too. He's like mocking Ethan like a sadist, sadistically mocking him for like Ilsa's death. It's like, damn, what an asshole.
Right. Not a nice guy. Not a nice guy at all. I mean, but I guess we can't really expect, bad guys to be decent.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't think the entity has like a love interest or like kids to feed or, charities to donate to.
Right. Right. It doesn't have any of that. So it'd be kind of hard for us to put human qualities to something that's not.
And what I find funny about this movie is that it was released right around the time the strikes began. And one of the big part of these after end writing strike is that both strikes are dealing with, well, several things. One of the reasons is AI and in general. Like studios that want to have AI write scripts for them or have actors deepfake themselves into movies at the cost of barely anything. And what I think is cool is that since this movie came out around that time, and it shows big leading man Tom Cruise fighting off AI for the benefit of humanity,
Right.
which is like great timing, honestly. If there's any great timing with this movie's release, it was for that.
Right. Exactly. And I think that also just gives it one of many reasons why you should watch it if you haven't already, because it's just something that makes you think, quite frankly.
Oh, yeah. Also, what I really enjoy about this and the other Mission Impossible movies is that these are big blockbuster action movies, but they really feel awesome. Like they feel really genuine, very natural. Like there's clearly a lot of passion put into them. I mean, yeah, it is the seventh installment of a franchise that's been going on. Well, technically since the 60s, but for the movies, it's been going on since the 90s. But compared to a lot of other blockbusters these days, like a lot of superhero movies where it's like actors in front of a green screen, they have way more emphasis on humor, even in like unnecessary parts, still adding humor to be like, it's dark here, but let's add a little joke in here to alleviate the tension.
Mhm.
And they often have not much in the way of stakes or set pieces or fun characters. I mean, they're not all bad. I'm not saying super movie bad, but I'm just saying compared to those, these Mission Impossible movies feel like a big breath of fresh air because they are just so awesome. It's like these the locations they go to are great. The action sequences are very well done, very memorable.
Oh
My
yeah.
favorite one in the movie being, and this one in particular being the was it Italy? Where they're in the little yellow car.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh my God. I loved that.
I forget the name of the car. I just call it the Lupin the Third car.
It did kind of look like that, you know? And also Haley Atwell.
Yes.
Okay. It's sad to see Ilsa go, don't get me wrong. Okay. But Haley Atwell, I think, did a great job. And I guess, the thing is that Ethan Hunt just can't have more than one woman, I guess, in his life because
Hmm.
they either like have to leave him or they end up dead or whatever. But she did a great job. And that scene, that long scene, I mean, it wasn't like a 2-second scene. And that's another thing that I love about the movies is that they play the scene out. It's not like these short clips, little cuts kind of thing that kind of makes you jump from one thing to another. It is like one long seamless shot. And there's action, but it's also funny. I mean, there's humor to it. And, I love that about this movie in particular.
I know we always make a big deal about what stunts Tom Cruise going to do in this one, but they're always very well done. Because in this one, the big stunt is he drives off the cliff and parachutes onto the train. And at first, it's like, well, that's pretty simple. You can just green screen. It's like, no, he usually goes like the extra mile. And what I love is there's a lot of build up to the stunt because it's all over the trailers. But in the movie, Tom Cruise is like, oh, I need to go on the train. And Simon Pegg is like, climb higher, go higher, go higher. And it's like, it's going to happen. We're waiting. When's it going to happen?
Right? It is a build up to it. And that's another thing too. You get other characters besides Ethan Hunt. You've got Simon Pegg in this one. And he's like trying to direct Tom Cruise to figure out, like, okay, you got to turn left here, you got to go right. And he's like, I'm going through a field. I'm like, I'm not, it's like, where am I supposed to be going? This is crazy. You've got me going up all these places. And he's like, why aren't you going faster? Well, because it's like I've got to go up like a mountaintop here. I don't know how to get to the mountaintop from where you're telling me about it. And again, I mean, it's not just the Tom Cruise show with these movies, right? We
Oh,
feel
yeah,
something for all the characters involved. And while he is clearly the lead guy, we also get to experience everybody else. And I just love that.
exactly. It feels like, I mean, yeah, it's an amusement park ride because you're there for the experience and the thrill, but it feels like one of those 4D rides where like you're being tossed and turned. It's like water spraying in your face, the air brushing against your cheeks, like you're really there. It's like one of those really awesome theme park rides where you're like,
Exactly.
wow, I'll remember that. That was really fun.
Exactly. I think that's, something that, you just kind of mentioned about superhero movies that at this point they kind of like had lost their steam a little bit. But I got to say that there was one besides Spider-Verse, of course, because I mean, that's a superhero movie. But there's another superhero movie that we saw that was above average above that we are when we say that superhero movies have kind of like lost their luster a little bit, this one is not one of those.
Oh yeah, this one is Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or Volume 3, if you want to be specific. I don't know what it is about these Guardian movies, man. They're always just so well done.
Oh my God.
And I think it's honestly because, I mean, some people would say, oh, the soundtracks, which, no, they're really cool. But I think it's because James Gunn just puts so much passion into these movies. Like, you really feel for these characters. They're not just like, oh, this guy made a funny, or like, let's have not much in the way of stakes. These stories, these adventures they go on are very personal. They're not afraid to get dark. They're not afraid to have like really sinister villains you really despise
Right.
but you just love to hate, and they're not afraid to make you cry, and
No.
not in like a manipulative way. That's like we're gonna do this because people will cry here. It's not as calculated or artificial as like other MCU movies where it's like we have to include this, we have to include that. This felt like James Gunn knew exactly what he was doing, and he did it well. He told a really interesting story that served as kind of a grand finale-ish to at least this iteration of the Guardians.
Absolutely.
And I think he knocked it out of the park with this one. I don't think it's as good as two. Two is still my favorite of the Guardian movies. In terms of like other MCU movies at the moment, I personally think it's the best of the phase, which is like phase five, right?
I think so. And here's the thing, this is absolutely not a slight against Chris Pratt. I mean, I love him, but I was glad that this movie wasn't really centered around him. I mean, we got to see Rocket's backstory, which was sad, but yet uplifting at the same time, which those are two emotions that are really hard to combine into one, but yet they pulled it off. And here's the thing, too, you know, at the beginning, obviously in the first one and then in subsequent movies and stuff like that, Nebula, she was like in the background, she was the villain. But I gotta say that I was really glad to see more about her because she's kind of like coming to her own in you know, in these last couple of, and I'm talking about also Endgame, you know, that one too. I mean, she's kind of come into her own where we're kind of getting a little bit more about her, but I was glad to see even more about her in this one. You know, I loved too the fact that for someone who is, you know, cold, half machine, right? She's very perceptive about human nature. And specifically when she says to Drax, this is at the end, where she says to him that, you know, you weren't born to be a destroyer, you were born to be a dad. And it makes me cry every single time I even think about that because it's just so, first off, that is such a great characterization of who he is that we didn't even realize this about him, which is another thing. I mean, we're learning so, this is the third volume, which is conceivably the last one. I mean, James Gunn has, I think I read somewhere where James Gunn has said that, you know, if given the right script and all the, you know, powers of the universe kind of all come together and everything, that he might do a fourth one. But basically, this was sort of like the swan song. This was the one that was truly Guardians of the Galaxy as they were. But we got to see parts of these people's characters that we had never really seen before. And usually a third time out, it's almost like everything's a wrap up. Like it's just basically retelling stuff that we already know. But we learned so many new things in this one. It also kind of shows that, you know, I mean, you weren't born to be a destroyer, the sense that he is always, you know, kind of held out to be like the strong guy, and he's the one that's going to be brute force and come in and just like kick ass and you know, take names. But that it's not those skills that are the most valued. It's not those skills that Nebula wants when she's basically asking Drax to please stay and help her rebuild nowhere. It's not those skills. It's the skills that it takes to be a good parent. Those are the skills that she wants him to bring when she's rebuilding this planet. And those are the skills that are valuable. Obviously, I mean, as a parent, I totally 1,000% agree with that. So that's why I'm just like, that I thought was just amazing how they kind of bring this in, and it's at the end. I don't mean to say it wasn't like it was an afterthought, because this was more like the punctuation, the exclamation point at the end of what was an amazing movie. And I thought one of the things that I really, really loved about it was that, and again, we don't get this until the end, but it all seems like all roads were leading to this, is that, you know, you can love your friends, you know, you love them as your family, but sometimes you have to make the hard choice to leave them in order to find who you really are, to find yourself. And that ending when Peter was like, you know, my mother died in front of me when I was 8 years old, and I've been running ever since. I'm going to need to take some time and learn how to swim. I mean, that right. I'm like, oh my God. When I first saw it in the theater, I think at that point I'm bawling anyway. I think I was like already crying anyway, trying to find like, do we not have any napkins? Do we not have anything? I don't normally have to bring napkins to see a Guardians movie, but apparently I'm like, but when we got to that part and he says that, I'm just like, oh my God, and then he makes the announcement that he's going to go back to Earth and find his grandpa, which again is just like here, he doesn't know what's going on with his grandpa. And of course, that becomes like a hilarious little side thing at the very end. But I mean, when he walks in and grandpa's like stands up and is like Peter and is just like, oh my God, just the emotion, you can almost feel it just emanate from the screen. I mean, it's just coming off of it. And that just is like, oh my God. But he had to leave the family that he knew to find this other family. And he has to find who he is. And so I thought that was just amazing all the way around. It was a great way to end. Obviously, Mantis says the same thing. She's like, I gotta go because before, Ego told me what to do. I had to do everything that he wanted me to do. And then I became a guardian. And then I had to follow everything that y'all wanted me to do. But I got to go and find out who I am. And I just thought that was an unexpected way to end this because it could have ended with them all just kind of high-fiving each other and then walking
Yeah.
away. Woo! We got everything. We saved the day again. We're the greatest. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And then, and then walk out to some like death metal chant or whatever it is. Right? I mean, it could have been like something like that, but it wasn't. It was, we're going to leave this with them saying, you know what? I have to make this hard choice.
Exactly. And you know what other movie has a similar theme to that?
Which one?
Well, I think you know.
I do know.
We're gonna be talking about Barbie, baby.
Barbie. Absolutely. I mean, what hasn't been said about Barbie? I mean, I think almost everything's been said about Barbie, but from my point, what I really, 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 really loved about Barbie, there's so much to love about Barbie, but what I really loved about it was that, yes, Barbie had a very similar theme that in the end, she made the hard choice to leave Barbie Land when she could have lived there forever. Nobody was kicking her out. No one was like, okay, Barbie, you're banished. Nobody was kicking her out. Nobody was telling her to leave, but she had to make that choice. And it wasn't that, she didn't like Ken anymore. I mean, she still
Right.
loved Ken. She still loved all the other Barbies. I mean, oh my gosh, she
Right.
still loved them. She loved Barbie Land. She loved everything about her life, except she wanted to discover who she was outside of Barbie Land, outside of all the other Barbies, outside of Ken and Barbie. I think she even says in the movie something about, because Ken's like, wait a minute, what are you doing? You can't leave me. And she's like, it's okay if we're just Ken and just Barbie. And I'm like, that was so adult of her to say, because so often we feel that we are part of either a couple or we're part of like a friendship, or that we can't just go and try to find out who we are. And that somehow, if we tried to find out who we are, other people might think that we don't love them as much as we do. And
Right.
she was basically saying, you know what? It's okay for us not to be Ken and Barbie. We are great being just Ken and just Barbie.
I will say though too, it's very interesting that Mattel allows so much to be done with this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because again, this is very much a creator-driven movie. Like Greta Gerwig, she wrote it with her husband Noah Baumbach, both are very indie-centric directors and writers. I'm surprised Mattel allowed them to get away with so much for this movie. Like not just like the postmodernism of Barbie coming to the real world and discovering the reception to her legacy, but also like Mattel's not portrayed in that good of a light in this movie. They're portrayed as like
Right.
boring businessmen who are kind of clueless,
Right.
very
Right.
wacky. And it's like, well, Mattel just so desperate to get this movie made because this movie was in development hell for like a long time. I mean, yeah, there were a lot of animated Barbie movies, throughout the decades, but live
Right.
action was difficult. Like Amy Schumer and Anne Hathaway were going to be Barbie at some point, which I'm not sure about that. Margot Robbie was the way better choice.
Oh yeah, no, she was great. That Mattel allowed to kind of have themselves be made fun of in that way, but still in a loving way. I mean, it wasn't like they were necessarily the horrible ogre bad guys that needed to be destroyed. It wasn't like that at all. I was kind of blown away that they were allowed themselves to be poked fun of in the way that they did.
Yeah, because this is a PG-13 movie, which Barbie, they're usually targeted towards like little kids, little girls, and it's like, wow, this is actually kind of a really deep movie. It's about the
Right.
concept of Barbie as a whole. And I will say before we move on to our next movie, I'm kind of disappointed, and I get why they didn't do it. They didn't include the Barbie Girl song in its entirety. I mean, yeah, they sampled it
Right.
for the big end credits song, but like, I don't know, they could have used the original.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't looked up. I mean, I guess I could, somebody on Google has probably told us exactly why that wasn't the case.
I think it might have been the very dirty lyrics, but this is PG-13. They can get away with all this stuff. And also, kids used to listen to that Barbie Girl song. They didn't know what hanky panky meant.
They don't understand that. And that's fine. I mean, they might not even get the last scene when Barbie comes in and she's like, yes, I'm here for my doctor's appointment. And it's to an OBGYN.
But I'm here to my gynecologist.
And the fact that, that is kind of like a running joke, the fact that they don't actually have any.
Genitals. Also,
Right.
the dolls don't have any of that stuff, which of course they reference in the movie.
That's kind of like a running joke in the movie, right? And the fact that she comes in at the end and is going to see her gynecologist is, I think, pretty funny. But again, young people may not understand that to begin with, why that
Yeah.
was an
Mommy,
interesting.
what's a gynecologist? Which I like to think that this is leading into this is all a prequel to Dead Rainers.
Oh my God. Okay, let's hope not. But I really enjoyed the ending in the sense that it also showed at the end that, we got to see Barbie Land without that Barbie in it, right? And we got to see where it was, the Barbies and the Kens were like working together. They were kind of allowing Kens a little bit more, say in what is going on. But we also got to see that they all were continuing to move forward. They weren't just devastated and curled up in a little ball when one of the Barbies decided to leave. So it's a hopeful ending for them. Barbie Land goes on. And then when we get to see Barbie in the real world, she also goes on and is sort of acclimating herself to this new and different world. So it's almost, it's great because we get to see that the choice that was made was the right one for everyone involved, even though at the time that she was making it, they really weren't sure it was. So I really enjoyed that. And just kind of, sharing that idea of, the legacy and what you're going to leave behind, I think is another part of this Barbie movie.
Which is why I think it's very interesting that this movie was paired with another movie at the time. I don't even know why we're building up to it. It's Oppenheimer.
Right? Like, oh my God, people aren't going to know that what we're going to talk about next.
What could it be? I'm gonna start Oppenheimer with this. A very funny little interesting anecdote. So Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's next big movie since Tenet back in 2020. And that was his last movie he did with Warner Brothers. That was the last in a partnership before he split off. Mainly because of the at the time simultaneous release strategy they were doing in 21, where it's like, see this movie in theaters and on HBO Max, which a lot of directors did not like because that meant they didn't get much revenue at the box office because they often get a cut of the gross for the theaters, but not from streaming services. And Nolan did not like that, so he took his next big passion project, which was a biopic about J. Robert Oppenheimer, and he took it to any studio that would allow him to make the movie. Every studio really wanted him to make the movie at their place, and Universal was the one he made the movie with. And Warner Brothers were jealous. They weren't happy that he, quote unquote, betrayed them. And so they're like, you know what? We're going to release Barbie the same day as Oppenheimer. How about them apples, bitch? What they couldn't have foreseen was the fact that people took notice of the two movies' differences and decided to come up with Oppenheimer. So the whole plan to ensure Oppenheimer as a financial failure did not work. Safe to say.
No, no, it did not. It absolutely did much better. And who's to say that it wouldn't have done better if they hadn't shipped it with Barbie? But the fact that they did and that they made it like an outing, I know that your theater, there were people who came because your theater showed obviously both Barbie and Oppenheimer. Like I think almost every theater in the country showed both of them. And people came dressed as both for Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Oh yeah, they shared a fandom, even though again they were so different, which I think is very interesting. I mean, you didn't see that when like Dark Knight came out the same day as Mamma Mia, or like The Matrix came out the same day as 10 Things I Hate About You. And it worked because I feel when studios try to force something like this to happen, it always fails. And they were already big juggernauts movies because Oppenheimer was the big Christopher Nolan movie. He's a big name, he's a brand at this point.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
Oppenheimer is a very well known figure in history.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And
And
the people that were in it. I mean, my God, you had, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is just, oh my God. I
oh,
mean,
he's so good.
he's so,
Like
so good in this movie,
he
right?
plays such an asshole. And I was thinking, when was the last time he played a bad guy? Like not like, oh, I'm a snarky jerk but I'm a protagonist, but like a total bad guy. Was it what was that movie? It was a sequel to the Fugitive.
Oh,
US
Marshals. Wasn't it the US
US
Marshals,
Marshals.
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that was like the last time he played a bad guy.
Yeah,
And he
and
hated
he was bad in that.
and he hated working on that movie because that was during his like drug phase.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, he's called as like his favorite role, his best performance, which I can see where he would think of that. Because like I love him as Iron Man. That's like one of the big movies that catapulted him back into stardom.
Right.
But I feel after that he sort of started playing Iron Man adjacents, like oh, similar to Iron Man, but not quite similar. Here he's like totally different, totally playing against type, and and a movie full of just big actors.
Right.
Again, similar to Barbie, we didn't mention this for Barbie, but Barbie also had a ginormous cast
Oh,
and
excellent.
of well recognizable characters and actors playing portraying them.
Oh,
And with
yeah.
Oppenheimer, it's the same. But what I love about a lot of Christopher Nolan movies is that he'll often get these big actors, these big A-listers like Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, and these other people to play these big roles. But
Matt
he'll also have
Damon
like,
and
Matt Damon,
Florence
yeah,
Pugh.
but also have like small characters, but still important characters played by character actors that are recognizable.
Oh,
Like The
yeah.
Dark Knight. Eric Roberts was like a mafia don, and Tiny Lister from Friday and Fifth Element, he was like the big prisoner on the ship who tosses the detonator out. And Michael Jai White, he's the black mafia guy who Joker slits his mouth.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And meanwhile, you got these people who are, again, they're not the biggest actors, but they're very memorable. And it's cool to give them these memorable parts because they're still talking
Absolutely.
about those characters.
Well, yeah. And I mean, one of them that I loved seeing, pop up in the scene where they're in that table, the round table, was Matthew Modine. I mean, I just love Matthew Modine and the fact that, he was also in Dark Knight Rises. But it was great seeing him because, again, these could have been just throwaway roles in the sense that it's not a lot of screen time, but he purposefully chooses these amazing actors to be in these smaller roles that just kind of give them more gravitas, I guess, and just kind of are saying that, you know what, this may be a smaller role, but that doesn't mean that they're not as important as the lead roles.
Right. Like my favorite is still James Remar's character. I forget who he played, but he was the general guy who was
Yes.
orchestrating the attacks on Japan.
Yes.
And it was that one little scene that apparently he improvised where it's like don't attack Kyoto. Me and my wife went on a honeymoon there.
What
And
that's
it's
not in
like
that he that wasn't in the script.
no, it was based on a real thing the guy said, and James Remar incorporated that into the movie, which I think is
Oh,
very fascinating because it humanizes him, but it also is kind of eerie because it's like I'm not going to attack this big city because it holds important meaning to us. The other cities we can attack. And he like sheepishly looks at the camera. He's like, "Oh, that's what honeymoon was." Like such a great scene, so memorable.
And that's the thing about, this movie, almost like every scene. I mean, we haven't even talked about like Matt Damon. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
he was just like, oh my God, again, did such an amazing job that you almost forgot it was Matt Damon. I mean, you actually thought it was the general. And that is what is so wonderful, I think, about the actors. I mean, Kenneth Branagh, I mean, not a huge scene that he was in, but it was a pivotal scene. These actors are just so good, but it's also, I think, Christopher Nolan's direction and the script that makes us not see the actor, but see the character that they're playing. And one thing, too, that I really loved about this movie is that it could have been just about Oppenheimer, the scientist, because as a scientist, he was very specific, very particular, very, deliberative in what he did. But it wasn't just the scientist that we saw. We also saw the man, Oppenheimer, the man, and he was all kinds of messy. He was just a big old mess. I love the fact that they showed that. And they have, I mean, because Emily Blunt, oh my God, I just love Emily Blunt. I mean, let me just go on the record here and say, like every other human being, I love Emily Blunt. And when when Oppenheimer's like running, he's clearly upset. He like falls beneath a tree. So she's like runs after him, and she doesn't really know why he's so upset, but then he tells her basically why he's upset. It's because his mistress committed suicide. And she's got this great quote that says, "You don't get to commit sin and then ask all of us to feel sorry for you when there are consequences." And I'm like, that quote right there, I think wraps up everything that is Oppenheimer the man. He
Oh
doesn't get to
yeah.
commit the sin and then make us feel sorry for him. But I think also it kind of bleeds into a little bit about him as the scientist, because there were consequences to what he ended up doing. And it, gets to the whole point of what sort of legacy did he want to leave behind.
Which was a really big legacy. Probably not the way he hoped.
Right. But yeah, that movie is just, it's not warm and fuzzy. It's not warm and fuzzy movie, but
Yeah, it's not exactly a blockbuster movie. It's like in scale, it's a blockbuster because it's a big budgeted movie, big cast, great set pieces, and really cool effects. But it's definitely a thinking man's movie. It's not just any ordinary biopic. It definitely feels like an auteur movie, where this is clearly a Nolan movie
right.
with his style, his everything.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Even to the point where he shot some in black and white and other in color. And afterward, you had looked it up because we didn't know why he had made that decision. And what did you find out?
I found out that the color scenes were meant to be the story shown through Oppenheimer's perspective, whereas the black and white scenes are meant to be seen through Robert Downey Jr.'s character, his perspective, Strauss. So it's like these two men are the big leads, the big figures of the movie, and we're seeing this whole massive decades-long story through their eyes. And it's just like how one sees this event versus how one sees that event.
Yeah. And of course, the big culmination of that is when we get to see Oppenheimer's we don't see the conversation with Einstein,
But at
right?
first,
At first, because we're seeing it black and white through Robert Downey Jr.'s character. But then later on in the movie, toward the end, it flips and we get to see that scene again in color, because we're seeing it actually from Oppenheimer's perspective. And it's completely different than what Robert Downey Jr.'s character thought it was.
exactly. So speaking of science and well, deep artsy summer movies, let us segue into our next little movie, which will be the new Wes Anderson flick, Asteroid City.
Exactly. I really enjoyed this movie because, one, he has a very distinctive style, and I appreciate that. And for me, I mean, I guess I always go into a movie thinking that, I'm along for the ride here. because it's really the director's, it's the writer's movie, more so the director's movie. But
Oh
in this
yeah.
case, it's also, since a lot of these movies were also written by the director. I think most of
Oh
these
yeah.
movies were written by the director. Weren't they all kind of written by the director? Now that I'm going back over it, weren't they all pretty much written by the
Well,
directors?
Spider-Verse not so much because Lord Miller wrote it and produced it, but they didn't direct it.
Right. But like
But the other
Guardians,
ones, oh yeah.
and then obviously Barbie, and then Oppenheimer, of course, was. And so was Asteroid City. And so I think that when I'm watching a movie, I basically am like, you know what? I'm just going to trust what the director wants to do. Take me on a ride. And I have to say, Wes Anderson movies never fail to make me just think about whatever it is that he's sharing in his stories. It just makes me think about it, because not only is it just a little offbeat, it's not something that I'm going to see in 20 other movies that year. I will not see the same thing as Asteroid City in 20 other movies. But also, it's just the themes that he explores. And, and I'm not going to say that he has hits, that he hits every single time. There's some movies that are, maybe a little bit better than others. But overall, I just really enjoy the ride that he takes me on, the journey that I'm on when I'm watching one of his movies.
I think what I liked about Asteroid City was that I feel like we're kind of in a new era of Wes Anderson movies where, yeah, they all look the same. His style's never gonna go away. He could
Which
direct
is which is
like,
a good thing.
right? I mean, he could direct like a Michael Bay movie, and it'd still look like him. This new era of Wes Anderson is it started with his previous movie, The French Dispatch, and I think through that we're entering a more philosophical, very meta and artsy period than Wes Anderson's movies, where the movies that don't tell a fully cohesive story. There's a lot of like bits and pieces, so you still have to put together yourself, and they're very philosophical in themes and the presentation, how they communicate to the audience, how there's not much in the way of like actual logic behind these stories, but but it's all meant to be like symbolic. They're all surrounded by a theme, not so
Right.
much a core story idea. And with Asteroid City, it was just the concept of just things happening with no real explanation. Like a lot of life is like that. We always want an answer to everything, but sometimes there is no answer. Like in this movie, why did the alien come down to take the asteroid? Well, we never find out. It just happened, and we have to deal with that.
Exactly. I mean, he is talking about some themes in this movie, like grief. That's something that he explores in other movies too, is the fact that the lead characters are dealing with the death of the mom and the wife. And it's like and the daughter, because Tom Hanks is the father of the mom and the wife who died. And so it's, how do you handle all of that? Grief is not an easy thing. And then you've also got the Scarlett Johansson character, who she's going through a divorce. Isn't she going through a divorce?
Oh yeah, she's a big actress going through a divorce.
Right, which is another part of grief, right? It's another loss. It's another type of loss for the daughter, who has to deal with the fact that her parents aren't going to be together any longer. It is kind of a different way of looking at things, where there's no set answers. There's no right way to grieve. And I think that's one of the things that comes across in this movie to me, is that we can't really say this is how you're supposed to do something, because it's very personal, just moving through things at whatever pace that we want to do it.
Also, the fact that the story was told like one of those anthologies from the 50s, like the Philco Television Playhouse, where it was all performed live and very stage-like storytelling. There's a narrator, Bryan Cranston, in this.
Right.
So it's told through this in black and white, but the actual story we're seeing, the play, is in color. And they take breaks between those to look at the crew behind the scenes and the actors portraying the characters. So again, is the meta aspect where it's in the style of this. But at least you're thinking, could the story have been told the same if you nix the framing device?
You might have been able to do it, but
Or would have been more straightforward?
it would have been more straightforward, I think. I mean, because some of those things that were in the framing device, that were in the part of the play part of it, that was the black and white, was really interesting and telling more about the characters that were not the characters. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but I mean,
Well, that's the movie.
And so I think we get more information about who these people are that we would not have gotten if it had just been more of a straightforward movie. But then I don't know if it would really have been a Wes Anderson movie. He doesn't really do straightforward.
Well, it's what I feel some stories he's told are, but the way they're presented, the way they're told, is very unique. Like, no, Rushmore, you could say is like a college movie
High
with
school.
some little antic. Sorry, it's been ages since I've seen that movie, folks. But
they
yeah,
were they were in
you
high
say,
school.
oh, it's a high school movie with some antics going on, or like, Mr. Fox, that's like almost like a heist movie, like an
Right.
animal heist film. And with these movies, I mean, I guess Grand Budapest was somewhat the start because that's also a meta narrative where it's like a story within a story, but it's also like a fun little caper movie. So no, that's my take on the plot to Asteroid City. Just all in all, very interesting little movie.
I'm really glad that we got to see it. It's one of those movies that again makes you think. I mean, this isn't your typical summer type, whatever that's supposed to be now. Maybe this summer has redefined what summer movies are supposed to be. But Asteroid
Maybe.
City doesn't really fit that. And I enjoyed that.
Oh yeah, like it has a big cast, but it's also a smaller scale movie. It's just set in this small. Is it even a town? It's like a little resting spot. Well, it's an event,
Right.
like
Right.
with like tents and the big crater.
And it's supposed to be a set because it's a play within a play kind of thing. It leaves you with a lot to think about. But now there were two movies that we each saw, but we did not see together. So you saw a movie that I did not see. Which one was that?
Well, I saw the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, Mutant
Woo!
Mayhem. Yeah, woo! Which is the second theatrical animated Ninja Turtle movie since the 2007 one, which was just called TMNT. That was good and all, but I think this one is honestly the best Ninja Turtle movie, like ever, even compared to like the old ones from the 90s.
Really?
Oh, I think so, because the Ninja Turtle movies are kind of weird in that the first one was, I forget when that came out, but early 90s, it was a lot more moody, a lot more darker. There was like live action, so it was people in like suits. It tried to tell like a little more I guess grounded as best you can for a Ninja Turtle movie, but
Right.
it leaned
Right.
it leaned a bit more towards the comics, which were like meant for adults. Still looks pretty good, even if there's like obvious like stage hands present, or like you can see the actor's face when the turtles open their mouths if you like pause a certain moment. Second movie was way more cartoony because I mean parents were like, I took my kids to see this turtle movie and it was too dark. And they're like, okay, let's lighten it up a bit. And I don't mind that. It's like a fun little cheese fest. But the third one, that sucked because it was cheaper. The Jim Henson Company did not return for that movie, and it really shows. Then the Turtle movies were spent in development hell. We never got an official fourth movie. We got that animated one. Then we got the Michael Bay produced ones, which weren't that good. I mean, they
Yeah.
had the moments, but they were really not that good. So Zoom One comes out, and it's like, okay, it's animated. It's done in the style of the Spider-Verse movies, which at the
Hmm.
time people were thinking, oh no, is this going to lead to the downfall of the Spider-Verse style? Because is there going to be such an oversaturation of movies looking like this that we start growing sick of them? Because that does happen. I mean, whenever
Right.
something becomes popular, everyone try to replicate it and it starts losing its cool. It stops being fresh. Thankfully, that's not the case because it's actually very well done. I mean, the movie looks really good. Apparently, the character designs were done in the way of like sketches, notebook doodle style of like, if you're bored in class, you just draw whatever.
Right. Yes.
It was done in that. So, saw the humans, some of them look kind of ugly, which I think is pretty funny. And what's really interesting is that the movie was conceptualized through Seth Rogen and his co-writers, and it was directed by Jeff Rowe, who he was a writer on shows like Gravity Falls, and he would go on to direct Mitchell's versus the Machines, which came out in I believe 2020 or 2021, one of those years. It's a blur. And they conceptualize this as a teenage coming of age story where it's like, let's make the turtles actually feel like teenagers. Because previously, and this goes like every adaptation, they always look a little older, they're always voiced by
Right.
adults.
Hmm.
They don't get actual teens to play these characters.
Right.
But because adult Mutant Ninja Turtles doesn't reign as much as teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's my guess anyway. I don't know. But they got like teens to voice these characters. These characters are aged down to where they are, I guess, not aged down, but like written in a way that is very teen like. Like they behave like teenagers, they speak like teenagers, and this time they sound like teenagers. And the plot kind of reminds me of X-Men because it deals way more into why they hide in the shadows in the first place, why they live in a sewer, because humans fear them, they're different. So the villain in this movie is Ice Cube as this mutant fly named Superfly. And he's pretty much like the Magneto of the movie, where it's like, me and my mutant brethren, we were discriminated by humans. We're going to launch a big attack on them, wipe them out, make mutants the dominant race. And we want you turtles to help us. And that's when the turtles struggle between like, do we fight for the humans? Because April O'Neil's like the new friend. And it's like, do we do that? Or do we go along with the mutants and destroy mankind? Well, we know what's going to happen. So they don't do that.
Spoiler.
But what I really dig is that the action scenes are really well done. This movie, a lot of really cool set pieces. Just the look of them, the cinematography is so great. There's a big fight scene that I love where there's like 5 gangsters they have to take down for information, and they play all those encounters like simultaneous. So it's like they're all stitched together into one coherent fight scene.
Oh, wow.
Between them and like all these goons that they fight like the Yakuza or the Italian goon gangsters. And it's all so seamlessly put together. And it's like, wow, this is awesome. There's even a big like chase scene set to the He-Man, hey, 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 one thing, what's going on? Like that song.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That sounds amazing, actually. So when we're going to have to see it. You're going to have to see it again with me.
Oh, I don't mind. It's really cool. And I want to say that it's going to get, again, studios could totally just pull the rug on this. It's going to get like a spin-off series, which would be really cool because I would love to see more of this world they crafted.
Very cool. Yeah, I love that. The movie that I saw that you did not see was Flash or The Flash. What was it? The Flash?
Yeah, The Flash.
Sorry, The Flash, excuse me. Apparently, I wasn't paying much attention to the title. And here's the thing. Was it the best movie that I saw? No, it was not the best movie that I've seen, but it really wasn't that bad. I think what the deal is, if they had asked me my opinion, okay, which clearly they didn't, but I think what the deal really was is that this movie started out kind of like a Barry versus Barry, like Barry 1 versus Barry 2. And I would have liked to have seen this movie focus on the Barrys being against each other, because the whole thing is that, Barry 1, we'll just call him Barry 1. Barry 1 wants to go back into time and save his mom from being murdered. Okay, that's nothing new. We've always known. If you've seen any Flash, you understand that, Barry's whole thing is that he could not save his mom from death. And he's always wanted to go back and change that, which I totally get. I think, Jackson, you would feel that way, right?
If I had superpowers like that, which I hope I would. I hope if you ever go, I would have a quote of superpower to actually try and prevent that.
But if you had a superpower that could try to save me, I know that you would try to save me.
I would try. Oh, yeah.
Thanks for that. I'm so there's such a rousing that you would try to save me, but that is, I think, a universal truth. We all would want to go back and try to save our parent. I would still want to go back and my dad passed from cancer. I would still want to try to go back and see if there weren't something I could do to save him from that. That is just something that everybody can understand. And I think in this movie is that it starts out with Barry not accepting his fate and wanting to change it so that his mom could live, and that his dad also wouldn't have gone to prison, which is, that's a bummer. But really, it's the mom. That's a side bummer there. But really, it's the mom dying. And so I get that part. Totally get it. But then he's in the Speed Force, and then he's kind of knocked out of the Speed Force, and then he's in like this new universe that's not his. And again, we're talking about multiverse, which, we saw a multiverse, the first movie we talked about was Spider-Man. Much better multiverse. Oh
Yeah,
my
a
God.
little more thought out compared to The Flash.
Oh my God, by 1,000%. So he's in this new universe, and this Barry, the mom's still alive and she hasn't died yet, or she doesn't end up dead because he had come back and said, anyway, it gets confusing. But the main point is that then in this universe with Barry 2, then we've got Zod comes into it, because somehow in this universe Zod wasn't destroyed by Superman, and so we've got Zod, we've got Kara, and we've got my beloved Michael Keaton as Batman, which I loved seeing him. I mean, because he is, when he says I'm Batman, I mean, oh my God, he's like, yes, you're Batman. And so that was great, loved seeing that. But it just seemed that the movie could have been, I think, just as good if it had just been Barry versus Barry. Quite frankly, because spoiler, Michael Keaton's Batman ends up dying. The two Barrys think, oh, we'll just, go back in time a little bit and save him. And so they go back in time for like a few minutes. And then we see the scene again, and they do save him from the initial death, but then he dies by another means. He's, lying on the ground, fixing to die. And Barry 1 runs over and is like, oh my God, I tried to save you. I can't believe that what do you mean you're going to die again? We just ran back in time to stop this from happening, and it's friggin' happening anyway. And that's when Michael Keaton is like, you did save me, but that you can't save me from this death. You saved me from the previous death, but you can't save me, because in the end, it is my fate to die here today. And that's when Barry 1 kind of then wakes up to the whole idea of, maybe I can't fight fate, and maybe I have actually got to just accept this. So then he goes back into the Speed Force. Somehow, I'm not really clear on how this works, but then Barry 2 is also back there, and Barry 2 does not want Barry 1 to not save the mom. So then we realize that this monster that was in the Speed Force at the very beginning of the movie that knocked out Barry 1 into this new universe is actually Barry 2. Right. And so it's like, what happened here? So at that point, it is Barry versus, and then they're like trying to beat up on each other and stuff, and then realize, and then Barry 1's explaining to Barry 2 that we can't fight fate and everything's going to come into hell in a handbasket, and we've got to like stop this. Mom just has to die. But maybe we can make it to where Dad doesn't end up the rest of his life in prison. Honestly, I think that it could have just had that. I mean, just really kind of have the two Barrys kind of come into grips with this without having to bring in all the other stuff, I guess. I thought it was just too convoluted, too much going on that didn't need to be there.
It didn't help this movie had a massive hill to overcome and during pre-production, where ignoring lead star Ezra Miller's criminal activities,
right,
the movie was a mess. It was in pre-production for ages. Multiple scripts were written, multiple directors were chosen. I remember at one point the Coen brothers were involved. Robert Zemeckis was involved.
Interesting.
Grant Morrison, famous comic writer, he would have been involved with the writing process, but none of their stuff was chosen, and the movie was still in development hell until Andreas Muschietti, at least how you say his name, the guy who did the It movies. He stepped in, and the movie was heavily edited because a lot of stuff happened in between the finished product and the release, because that's when James Gunn came in, and that's when he's like, let's nix some of these cameos because we're going to reboot the DC universe anyway, and that's ended up what happening. So the ending with Michael Keaton, Batman, and Kara, them dying, it would have been revealed at the very end that when Flash returns back to his home world, his home timeline, they would have stayed, which then we would have seen more movies with Michael Keaton Batman. There would have been a Supergirl movie with Kara, and that didn't work out, and they decided, let's just reboot everything. And that's what happened. We got the ending where, spoiler, George Clooney Batman shows up.
Right. Right.
And on top of all of this stuff, pre-production, it also has to try and adapt the Flashpoint Paradox story arc, which originally branched like 100 plus issues. It was this massive arc that led to a reboot of the DC universe, and itself was adapted into an animated film. I forget what it's called, but it's like I think it was called The Flashpoint Paradox, where it was like a more British version. And what was cool about that movie was that that was more of a time travel story. It wasn't like multiverse everything because it dealt with Flash. The premise is the same. Flash is trying to save his mother from dying. He ended up creating an alternate timeline where a whole lot of stuff changed. Batman, Bruce Wayne got shot instead of his parents, and his dad became Batman while his mom became the Joker.
Oh my
And
God.
so this Batman is way more ambiguous. He uses guns, he kills. Meanwhile, Aquaman and Wonder Woman got into a giant war where the whole world is screwed because the Atlanteans are fighting the Amazonians. Superman is kept prisoner in a underground bunker, and all this, Flash is trying to return home, but he has to gain enough energy to do so. But the big thing, the big change between Flashpoint and this new Flash movie is the exclusion of Reverse Flash, who is Flash's big arch nemesis. And Reverse Flash is, put simply, this massive asshole, super petty. He basically is saying, yeah, I didn't cause it to happen, Barry. You did. It's your fault the world's like this. And soon a nuclear bomb's gonna go off and we're gonna die together. He's like such a dick, and we love him for that. But he's not in this new Flash movie. They decided to make him Barry too, which I really don't know how to feel about that. Because on one hand, it sounds like it could be an interesting take on the story, where there's like clashing over should history change, should history remain the same. But at the same time, for this new one, it felt like, well, multiverse movies are popular, and they decided to work the plot around that because there was a lot of names of like Affleck was going to have more of an appearance in this movie, but then they decided against it. They decided Michael Keaton should have more of an appearance in this movie. It was just a big mess. It was a big committee movie. That's what it feels like to me from what I've seen, where it's like there are too many cooks in this kitchen. There's no real clear vision. There's a story idea in there that seems really interesting, and they could have made it a way better story. But Warner Bros. Are really banking on this movie to be successful, and it just didn't turn out so well. Nobody really saw it, and I don't know if it's because of the movie's marketing or because Ezra Miller is just such poison in the eyes of casual people, or maybe just poor word of mouth. Something happened, and it didn't do as well. Now, are you glad you saw it at home, or do you wish you could have seen it in the theater?
I mean, I'm fine with seeing it at home, quite frankly. But when you were talking about using the reverse flash, it kind of did feel that that second Barry 2, was almost the reverse flash when they were in the Speed Force. And I'm like, when you were talking about that, I was like, it might have been better if they had just flat out made Barry 2 reverse
Flash,
Barry. Right.
or at
Reverse
least,
Barry, reverse flash.
or at least a different take on the character.
Exactly.
So I'm guessing Flash wasn't your favorite movie of the summer,
No.
but what was?
Oh my God. There's just so many. I mean, the ones we talked about, they all have a special place. But I mean, God, that's so tough. I think I'd almost have to go with Guardians.
Oh, really?
I think so. I mean, the others, don't get me wrong, loved all the other movies for sure. But yeah, I mean, they all made me cry. Don't get me wrong. Every single one of them made me cry. But I think I'm going to go with the Guardians. We'll go with that, subject to change. But we'll go with Guardians for right now. What was yours?
Oh, easily Spider-Verse 2. No contest. I mean, all the other ones we saw were really good as well, but Spider-Verse 2 was like such a wow movie. Like you look at it and go, holy shit, this looks so good. And it was so worth the wait. Because the
Oh,
previous one, again, came out like 5 years ago.
God, was it 5 years ago?
Yeah, well, almost five. It was December of 2018.
Oh my God, that seems like yesterday. Maybe just because I've seen it so much, because
Right?
I love it so much. And obviously, this one, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it was a fantastic story, fantastic the way that it looked, fantastic acting, all of it was just amazing. So, I mean, I could definitely see why that. But I mean, they're all just so good. I'll still stick with Guardians for now.
I can see that. And on that note, hope you had a great time at the movies this summer. Thank you for joining us on today's show. Until next time.
Bye, y'all. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review.
And as always, you can head over to talkingmovieswithmymom.com to sign up to our email list, as well as check out all the links and resources from today's episode in the show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.